Hi everyone, and welcome to another video where I go through one of my JavaScript projects for the 100 days of coding. This is my second project and I've decided to create a stopwatch. I'll show you briefly what the stopwatch does. So here it is. You can click start and it will start counting. We'll watch it go over 10 and see how it updates the character next to the left of it. There you go. The pause button pauses the timer, and when you click stop, it resets it, but it also posts your previous time below. So some of the things that you'll learn in this project is document.getElementById, which is the way that we use JavaScript to work with objects within the HTML. So in this case, we're using buttons. We also learn how to use the setInterval function, which basically is a function that will count to a predetermined time. So in this case, 1000 milliseconds, which is 1 second. We also learn how to disable buttons so that the user cannot click on them. We also find out how to use inner HTML to dynamically change the content on the index page in real time. We also learn the plus operand, which will plus 1 to a variable. And we will also look at Boolean logic if statements. So I'll quickly breeze through the index HTML. So we've got our basic HTML presets. I've created a container, which is called timer, and that's preset to 0000000. Underneath that, I've got something called a bottom container. And inside here, we have 3 buttons with the ID start, pause, and stop. And then under there, we have another div called time records, and it says previous time. And we have an empty H1 heading block with no text in it, and that's called times. When we go over to the style, as you can see, I've styled the container, the bottom container, and I've managed to style start, stop, and pause all with the same style sheet. And when we look at the JavaScript, I'll take you through what this does. So first off, we have to initialize all of our variables at the start. So we are initializing timer. We're initializing the second, minutes, and hours to 0. We've got a second pair of second, minutes, and hours, which are zeros, and the minimum. We also have set the current time to 0 and the past times to an array. Now we'll ignore this for now because I haven't finished with the array. We've also created a list, which is here, but again, we're not using that right now. So I'll skip the list aspects of the document for now. And here we have variables, start button, pause button, stop button, and timer element, which are accessing the different buttons on the document. This one here is actually accessing the H1 block here. So we're able to manipulate this area of the document with this. We set a variable called time record, which is also accessing times. Oh, sorry, that was times there. So this one here is looking at this top container, which is currently set to this string. So now we have to activate the buttons. So this one activates the start button. It's looking for a click, and when we get a click, it's activating a function that sets a variable timer to a set interval at 1000 milliseconds. So every 1000 milliseconds, it's going to activate time handler. Now time handler is down here. It's a function, and it's basically adding +1 to seconds every 1000 milliseconds. It's also saying if seconds equals 60, set seconds back to 0, and then add 1 to minute. And then we also have an if statement that says if minutes equals 60, set minutes to 0, add +1 to hour. And what this does is it allows the seconds to count up to 60, go back to 0, and add 1 to minutes. And when minutes hit 60, it adds an hour. And finally, at the end, it says display time. The display time function is below us here. And this is basically setting the first 0 here is the pretty function. So we've got 0, the first hour is hour pretty. It's setting it to hour. The second 0, this first one here is minimum pretty, which is minimum. And this third one is pretty second, which is set to second. It's saying if second is under 10, set the pretty second, which is the one that comes before it, to 0 plus whatever second is. So when second gets to 10, it's going to add 1 to the left of it. And then when it gets to 10 again, it's going to change it to 2. So that's how we get it to go past the 9 to 10, past 19 to 20. And we do that for all three. And in this timer element, we are using inner HTML to change the document to say the hour, the pretty hour, colon, the minute, the pretty minute, colon, and the pretty second. So that's going to update this section of the index, which is this area here. Within the buttons, we have a stop button dot disabled equals true, which means that when we click start, the stop button is disabled, and so is the start button. The reason why we do this is because after I press start, we only want pause. Pause is then going to stop the time, and stop is going to clear this time and record it down here. If we didn't disable start, what we'd be able to do is click start again, and this would be adding twice as many seconds because we've set 2 time intervals, which we don't want to do. We want it to stick to 1. So we disable the start button. The way that I get the previous time is I have a variable called current time. When we click stop, we're setting the current time to the timer's text content. And the timer's text content is whatever this is. So current time equals whatever we have here. And then it pushes the current time into an array. And as you can see here, we are changing the inner HTML. So we are updating the HTML in this section to include the current time being whatever this is. So that happens when we click stop. So when we click stop, it's taking this time, setting it to a variable, and then posting that variable here. In the future incarnations, so hopefully tomorrow or the next day, I'm hoping that I'll be able to have the list, which is past times, populate this section here. So no matter how many times we do this, the list will just keep on presenting itself one after the other. It will have a break line and it will present itself, the list will present itself within the HTML. So we can record multiple previous times. So that's my second project so far. I think it went well. I used a video to sort of explain the time intervals and how that works. I'll link a description to that video below if you want to follow along and make your own. I changed it quite a lot. I changed the way the buttons are formatted. I added this previous time myself. And I also added the ability to post the recorded times into a list called previous times. I hope that makes sense, and good luck with your JavaScript.